Hi, everybody. I have decided to record some form of a message through tarot corresponding to the period following the full moon in Pisces, into Mercury retrograde, into a bunch of planets turning retrograde or continuing to be in retrograde motion. Um, Black Moon Lilith squaring um, Chiron. We need to talk about that. And an upcoming Venus-Mars square, as well as, of course, the Saturn-Uranus square that is ongoing. I mean, this will be, I think, I'm pretty sure it's the third pass, right? But of course, those planets move slowly anyway, so we'll be seeing that continue through 2023, but it will be at another of its peaks. The first 2 weeks of October. So we need to talk about all of this because of the clusterfuck of energy that this is creating. What's new? Oh, sounded like I was going to sing that song Buenos Aires from Evita. But no, just what's new. Because the energy is pretty fucking intense. And not just intense, but I thought that Mars and Gemini would give some kind of a reprieve, some kind of a, um, I don't know, something a little less intense in terms of the focus of that masculine energy. But I cannot say that that has been the case, and I certainly do not observe it to be that case in other people around me because everyone is fucking nuts, repressed, angry, frustrated, disturbed, totally out of whack with themselves, I will point out too. And personally, I am in a place of, and I'll just give you a spoiler of our general energy Osho card, isolation. Now, unfortunately, I can't actually be isolated. I would like to. But I certainly feel it. I feel disrespected. I feel unseen. I feel uncared for. I feel there's an amalgam, an accumulation of looking at the way that people have treated me over the course of a long period of time. But again, it's hard to really, we don't want to pull from trauma. That's not the idea here. I'm talking strictly in terms of how I have been perceived, treated, and qualified by people across the board in my life. People that don't follow through with things, people that do not prioritize me. And when I speak of these things, I hope that you do not see it purely as an ego um, rip here, because that's not really what it is all about. It's just to give you a little bit of a sense of how this energy translates in my life. And as you can hear, my throat chakra is totally fucked because I repress, repress, repress. I do not speak my mind. I cannot speak my mind because I am in poverty consciousness, and I spend my time constantly thinking to myself that if I speak my truth, I will lose something. And what exactly do I think I'm going to lose? Because I'm talking about a bunch of shitheads. Terrible friends. I know I've talked about this before. Some of them are the same people. Some I have just cut out of my life. I just don't respond to them. I have actually ghosted people. I will be perfectly frank in telling you this. But it goes deeper than that. I know everybody's consumed by their own life. That's part of the problem. I am not claiming to be impervious to this deeper fault. It is pretty universal, And I think it comes as a result of all of the energy that we are consumed by. But it's time to wake the fuck up. If you're watching this and you know me and you will understand that I am a person that when I put my mind to something, I do it. And it may take me a very long time to shut the door. It may take me a very long time to resolve myself to cutting the cord. But I've done it many times. And this soul in this vessel will not be taking people that don't honor and respect me along for the ride anymore. And you need to think about that in your own life, because that's kind of what a lot of this energy is all about. Part of the reason why it's so complicated is because with the Saturn-Uranus square, we're not really in the position to know what we want instead. Maybe what we want we know, at least broadly, but we don't have the platform or the opportunity or the lifeline to pursue yet. It isn't clear. And one of the things I've noticed a lot about Mars in Gemini is that the sort of random energy that it corresponds to in how it's channeled into our day-to-day lives is actually making it much harder to focus, to persist and pursue. And maybe a lot of that is because, as Gemini is a sign of curiosity, of, yes, a little bit of volatility too. Sorry, any Geminis that are triggered by that, but it's true. And flippancy too, and flip-flopping. So when you think of Mars energy and then you think of adding those characteristics to it, I guess it's about discovery, but it is not comfortable because I think we're all really tired of discovery. And we want to just find, right? We want to feel like we found something, and we haven't. You may have found something in here. You may have found a lot of things in here. But out here, it's a shitstorm. And it's ugly. And we're not living up to the essence of what we are and who we are and what we are here to do. We are not being our higher selves. We're not. I meditate every day and I try to channel a line of communication with my higher self, at least energetically. And but the choices that I've made, the circumstances of my life, take me out of that very, very quickly. And I have a really hard time staying in it. And I have a feeling that the Mars Venus square coming up this coming weekend, if you're watching this before, or I'm recording this on the 13th of September, and this really energetically corresponds through to the Equinox on the 22nd of September. I will probably record something separately for the Equinox because I'd like to do something for the season ahead that doesn't dogged down by all of this energy. But of course, with all of the retrogrades, we're not really going to be out of the pickle that we're finding ourselves in emotionally, spiritually, until the end of this year. And so we have to ride the waves, so to speak, in a way that serves us internally, because that's really what the retrograde energies are all about. It's the opportunity for us to look inwards, and but we have to harness it. We have to be conscious about what it is that we are um, being reflective and analytical about. Um, and we have to find trust again. That's the biggest part of it. We have to find trust. Trusting ourselves first. That is huge. Because I think that maybe a lot of us have made the mistake of putting all of our trust outside of ourselves, feeling disappointed that we can't trust outside of ourselves, but then realizing, or not wanting to realize, but this is part of what we're talking about right now, that we're giving it all away. We're not trusting ourselves. We don't even trust ourselves. How on earth are we going to trust anybody else? Same thing goes for love. We don't love ourselves. Don't tell me that you love yourself. You don't. You may sometimes, but you don't. Everybody struggles with this shit. And I'm sick and tired of this stupid esoteric hellhole of people that pretend to not be going through it. It's like, you're not a guru. No one's a guru. No one knows anything. We're all just trying to put information together. We may feel things instinctually. We may even channel. We may even come in to graceful touch with spirit and the essence of the power of the universe, the truth, the light, you know, source. We feel source for moments, but none of us can claim to be holding that, because you know what? We wouldn't even be here if that was the case. We'd have long um, imploded into a ball of light and flown off into the ether. And frankly, lately, I can honestly say that I have gone through ups and downs of feeling like, frankly, I want to do that. And if it weren't so fucking painful to end your life, I think I would. And I'm not saying that as a sympathy call. I am not saying that to drag anybody else down. I'm just saying, for the lack of love that's out there, what is the point? I don't know what I'm doing wrong that I can't love myself enough to allow other people to love me, but I sure don't feel very loved. That's for damn sure. And I'm just being honest about that. I have moments of love. I have moments of connection, but everything's so disjointed. There's no passion. There's no one that's devoted and dedicated to 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 my presence, my experience, other than myself. And as I said, I'm not blaming anybody else. I'm just saying that's like a truth, and it's a hard thing to experience. For fear of going down a path of sounding like I am actually lashing out at anybody in particular, or that I'm just dragging you down if you were hoping for some uplifting message, we will work through that. But the cards indicate that the energies of these times are funky, out of whack, and pointing at us to sort that out and take the reins of our lives again, and our self-belief, and our determination. And that poverty consciousness card, right back on this table. I wish I could show it to you. I really do need to figure out a way to show that and what I'm doing on camera. But you'll just have to go with me. You'll have to excuse Enzo flopping about with his ball. He's annoyed at me because I'm not playing with him. I actually started recording this about, um, well, not this, but another recording, uh, either over the weekend or last week. I can't remember when it was. Whenever it was a disaster. And Enzo is a big part of it being a disaster. So he's under strict orders to not interfere. What is happening? I feel like the light is changing and I'm turning more and more purple or pink or orange or something. Anyway, who cares? I didn't really pull that many cards other than tarot cards this week because for this reading because I really felt that this is all about something on the inside. Oh, well, I forgot to talk about Black Moon Lilith and squaring Chiron, which is ongoing and will continue for, a good few weeks ahead, which is another reason why we may be feeling all of this inner turmoil and pain and discomfort, because Black Moon Lilith is what? It's unseen point of, it's not a real thing, but it's an unseen point beyond the moon and the dark of the moon, and it is your potential, our potential, and we don't obviously clearly have any knowledge of what our potential is other than in projection. So it's a scary thing, especially if you feel like you're falling short, which is easy to do when you're in poverty consciousness. But of course, Chiron, the wounded warrior and healer, squaring that will give you a good indication of why we might be feeling like our cups are empty and we're not really figuring out how to remedy that. I hope that I'm not going into further detail about that because it's as much of a mystery to me, and anybody who tries to put it into words, I think, frankly, fails, because these are esoteric concepts. These are just, they exist beyond words. It's something that we would know within ourselves, I suppose, and hopefully one day we will know it well. I did pull one card from, what is it called? The White Light Oracle. Obadiah. I have no idea how you pronounce that, so that's my attempt at pronouncing it. These are long, so bear with me as I read, and also remember that it's written in italics, and it's tiny, so if I stumble as I read, you'll know why. There's also a little healing process for us to read as well. If it requires making strange sounds on camera, I probably won't do it live, but we'll see. And I think this message is the protection message, the way that I would normally do Spirit Animal Oracle card. It's our protection message. Basically, like Spirit coming in and being apparent to us and going like, listen, okay? So let's all listen. I haven't read it properly, so I'm doing the same. Do not turn away from your path, nor from what you know in your heart to be true, no matter what appears to be, nor what logic may dictate. Trust what your heart is telling you. You are safe and protected by Spirit. You are spiritually empowered with all you need to manifest your authentic soul path. Authenticity is the goal. It's really hard to. Let's talk about that. You have what it takes to connect with the light and live that connection in practical ways which contribute positive energy to our human collective. Obadiah is the Latin basis for the word obedience. Well, it's obedire, but I can't speak Latin, so I'm sorry for my lack of ability to pronounce, but now you know. Now I know how it was meant to be pronounced, sort of, whatever. I don't know what I'm saying. Far from conforming to authority, the original meaning was to listen, to hear, and to not turn away. The oracle of Obadiah is about becoming a sacred rebel, giving up faith in the ways of the world and embracing the ways of the Spirit unconditionally. That means refusing to torture yourself with horror stories that society and your own mind conjure up from time to time. This is very on point, especially I can relate in any case. This guidance is encouraging you to connect through your heart with the spiritual light, wisdom, and guidance within. The oracle asks you to believe in the power of spirit, to show you the way through all the troubles. There is a message from our loving universe for you. You will feel it in your own heart. You may consider yourself to be a feisty, independent, strong person, rather than one who is docile and surrendered in spirit. A vibrant and powerful personality may feel initial resistance or confusion when asked to become soft to the ways of spirit. Yet this sort of obedience is not about giving away your power or becoming someone you are not. When we are receptive to spirit, we become more unique, not less. More unique, not less. This oracle asks us to get out of our own way. Often we make things more difficult for ourselves, even when our intentions are good. This is because we see things from a limited or partial perspective. This doesn't mean we should refuse to act at all. It just means that as we practice sensing and following spirit by tuning into the heart, we will act from a more centered and wisely guided place. Our actions will be more likely to hit the mark. When we flow with the greater wisdom of life, far-reaching, positive consequences awaken. Recognizing that spirit is wiser than your own personal opinion is the prelude to true awakening. The more awakened we are, the more genuine benefit for all beings can unfold through our endeavors. To be clear, the guidance of this oracle is not to hand over your power, nor to seek out spirit to tell you what to do. It is always up to you to exercise your free will and live your life as you choose. Sometimes the responsibility behind such freedom might seem too much, but this is our task as human beings, to own our freedom and exercise it with wisdom and delight. When you trust your courage more than your doubt, you will be ready to listen to spirit and act on what you perceive. You will be capable, willing, and able to live as a light on this earth. You are also encouraged to ditch the drug of doubt. Doubt undermines your confidence and sends you on a mission to gain approval before making every decision. Approval can become the hit that alleviates doubt temporarily, but it prevents you from building the strength you need to listen for your own spiritual knowing. You have it within you to be spiritually sovereign. This oracle asks you to recognize your inner potential and to practice trusting yourself and your capacity to respond to life's unpredictable happenings with soul-honoring integrity. Now, all of that resonates specifically for me, not as if it's something that we've never talked about before or that none of us is aware of, but more from the perspective that we need to remind ourselves of that in order to get back on track when we go right off track into some weird parallel dynamic that can shift so quickly and happen so quickly just because we don't listen to ourselves and we listen to other people, and we start thinking that other people are more capable of um, showing us the way. But we're all here to walk our individual paths, and that means that your mistake is your victory. Somebody else might look at your mistake and think that it's a giant failure and that your life is a failure, but you're not them and they're not you. And that's the hardest thing to remember because we compare ourselves all the time. And it's so frustrating to get caught up in that. It's a drug, it's a web. It's like getting caught in a spider's web, of once you're in it, it's really hard to get out, right? So something to consider there. Again, what is authenticity? Authenticity is being truly yourself, honoring yourself and showing yourself. And yeah, I get it. It's really hard when you have considerations like material considerations, like making money, or maybe you live in a very structured family situation or a very traditional society or something where you can feel trapped into having to conform in order to make things work. But one thing that I'm really starting to understand, even though I can't figure out how not to live that way because I've disempowered myself by many of the choices I've made in my life, is that we will never ever feel fully authentic for as long as we follow somebody else's rules, desires, limitations, restrictions, the parameters of another's control. You know, I know it sounds crazy. I mean, how are you supposed to escape those things? You know, you want to be able to pay your rent or your mortgage or, pay off your credit cards or, still go shopping, still obviously have food and shelter. But it's a process. And we can't get lost out of our authenticity because we're so afraid of not conforming, of not adhering to the draconian authoritarianism of certain factions in your life. And you have them, I have them, because we are sovereign beings and because we're on the spiritual awareness path. We know that those people suck because they're not actually doing any of the work on themselves. And the less work a person does on themselves, the more torturously authoritarian they are. And this is the game of life, right? It's really fucked up that the people that control us the most are the ones that are the worst offenders of everything that we don't want to aspire to. We'll find our way. But again, let's remember that this reading is really leading up to all of this retrograde energy that we are encountering. And so it's important to remember that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but that when we're in it, we have to not look at it as drowning in shit soup, but more like, oh, an opportunity to nurture myself in my own time and space, in my own private sovereign world, not looking for it to happen in the outside world. Because it's not to say that it can happen in the outside world, but that's not actually going to bring you the growth that you um, require and desire right now. Healing process. Place a hand at your heart and connect consciously to your breath as it flows in and out. Feel that you are grounded, present, and ready to speak from your heart. When you are ready, say the following invocation and healing prayer aloud. And of course, I'm not going to do this. I've got a very itchy face and nose, so I do feel as though we're being guided right now. But I won't do this obviously with the breathing, but I will, if you want to follow through with that, with your hand on your heart and steady your breath, find your spiritual center, and say the following or follow my words. I call upon the white light of spiritual grace, divine love, and healing. Please help me tune in to clear guidance in all areas of concern in my life. I choose to trust in the unfolding of a higher loving plan in my life, the divine timing of that plan, and my own capacity to respond and act with wisdom. I recognize that I am blessed, empowered, and protected as I fulfill my side of my divine soul contract with the universe. I have the courage to continue. I have the wisdom to embrace the inner light of my heart, helping, healing, and guiding me with grace. I have every right to be confident in myself and trusting of spirit. Place your hands in prayer and let your mind and heart relax. You may wish to close your eyes and intend that a loving light of spirit is around you and within you. Especially notice the top of your head relaxing in the presence of spirit. Ground yourself again in the present moment with a deep breath in and out. You have completed your healing process. Okay, are you ready for the nitty-gritty of our tarot and Osho cards? There's a couple of those to read too. Just to give you an idea of how I did this. So there's an introductory Osho card that I will read. There are 3 rows of tarot cards that came out very bizarrely for me. I'd never thought of doing it this way before, but it came to me as I was shuffling, and they came out that way. First row is the outside world and how we relate to it and how we are experiencing it, and where we need to resolve the issues. The second is our inner world, same process. And the third is our resolution, the fusion of both of them as we move towards this equinox. And then we have 2 Osho cards to conclude. I only took one clarifier per row. The second row actually had 2 that came out together, but there's not clarifiers for individual cards. So we'll just go with the flow of how it comes across. Hopefully it will all make sense to you. So what is this isolation card? That picture sure does speak 1,000 words, right? In our society, men in particular have been taught not to cry, to put a brave face on things when they get hurt, and not show that they are in pain. But women can fall into this trap too. Sorry, this is even more tiny. I'll show you like how tiny the writing is, and maybe you can just ugh. And of course, I refuse to have bright light because I hate it. But women can fall into this trap too, and all of us at one time or another might feel that the only way to survive is to close off our feelings and emotions so we can't be hurt again. If our pain is particularly deep, we might even try to hide it from ourselves. This can make us frozen, rigid, because deep down we know that one small break in the ice will free the hurt to start circulating through us again. The rainbow-colored tears on this person's face hold the key to breaking out of the isolation. The tears, and only the tears, have the power to melt the ice. It's okay to cry, and there is no reason to feel ashamed of your tears. Crying helps us to let go of pain, allows us to be gentle with ourselves, and finally helps us to heal. And I think a lot of us have also fallen into the trap of convincing ourselves that we're on top of ourselves emotionally, and we're not. And are we getting the help that we need? Have we taken the steps to find the help that we need? Are we just stalling again? Are we in another cycle of like spiritual bypassing? The answer is yes, yes, yes. If you think that the answer is no, you're a liar to yourself. Don't get triggered. Be honest. Be authentic. No one's getting nowhere bypassing spirit. This is a process, and it's a painful one sometimes. And if you aren't doing the work on yourself, you're not ever going to get anywhere. That is the joy of it. When things are great, it's a fun game. When things are not so clear or harmonious, or we get stuck in the swamp a little bit, it takes self-care, and we have to find the purpose and the joy in self-care. I need to do that. I definitely need to do that. I think I need to go back to therapy, actually, but I haven't figured that one out yet, because finding a therapist that I want to see, who actually can handle my perception of things without wanting to put me in a lunatic asylum, is tricky, right? We are miserable because we are too much in the self. What does it mean when I say we are too much in the self? And what exactly happens when we are too much in the self? Either you can be in existence or you can be in the self. Both are not possible together. To be in the self means to be apart, to be separate. To be in the self means to become an island. To be in the self means to draw a boundary line around you. To be in the self means to make a distinction between this I am and that I am not. The definition, the boundary between I and not I, is what the self is. The self isolates, and it makes you frozen. You are no longer flowing. If you are flowing, the self cannot exist. Hence, people have become almost like ice cubes. They don't have any warmth. They don't have any love. Love is warmth, and they are afraid of love. If warmth comes to them, they will start melting, and the boundaries will disappear. In love, the boundaries disappear. In joy, also, the boundaries disappear, because joy is not cold. Now, what I would say to that, too, is, because I'm guilty of it myself, is that I always expect other people to come to me with the warmth. I mean, I go around thinking that I'm warm and that I'm not an ice cube, but the truth of the matter is that I still carry so much conditioning from rejection, humiliation, alienation, all of those things that we all have to experience in some shape or form throughout our lives, and makes us weary and untrusting and unloving, really. That is what we have to peel away every time, not expecting other people to be there, not expecting other people. Yeah, I can honestly say, as I said at the beginning of our video today, you know, people are awful, awful, just cold, and, just the way that they will look at you can ruin your day when you are vulnerable enough to make yourself happy. I don't know. I mean, I told you I live in, like, probably, I don't know, this building that I live in, it's like as if, like, it's a vortex for miserable people, rude, miserable people. Um, and, there's a new one today that I bumped into, that I saw, like, walking his dog, and then he went back to his apartment with his dog, and then comes out again as I'm coming in from my car. And I smiled and said hi, and I mean, his face, I don't know that it was personal towards me, but I mean, you imagine somebody just looking at you like this. How can you not personalize that? It's awful. And what kind of a person walks around thinking that that's appropriate and then not even saying hi back to somebody? That is really fucked up. And it's like a gazillion fold, you know? Because everyone hates everyone. Everyone's angry. It reminds me of this Joni Mitchell song called Sex Kills that came out in like 93, 94 on her Turbulent Indigo album. And the lyrics were like, you can feel it in the traffic. Everyone hates everyone. The gas leaks, the oil spills, and sex sells everything. Sex kills. And of course, at that time, it was particularly pertinent because of the AIDS crisis, but I guess it still is because now people die of monkeypox. Um, but in other words, society is our downfall as much as it has the capacity to uphold us, right? Because it's what we put into that society, and our society is rotten to the core. Like all of the values that we've embraced, all of the pillars of our society as it stands in the modern era are rancid, selfish, grotesque. And of course, not everything is. There are examples of other things, but unfortunately, that grotesquerie seems to be winning. So the only place that we can really come from is here. And the only way we can get there is through figuring out how to love ourselves, right? And then naturally loving others more, just carrying that energy. I point the finger at myself just as much as anybody else because I am very capable of it. Trust me, you don't want to see me behind the wheel of my car sometimes when I have to drive out to Malibu and I'm like driving like fucking like 70 miles a day, and let's just say people that live in Los Angeles are not the most considerate of drivers. I digress. Okay, so this outer life that we are living, I have to tell you, three of the cards that came out, there are five cards in a row. Four of them are the main cards, and then one of them is the clarifier. These came out in reverse, these three. So we start with the Page of Pentacles in reverse, not being able to manifest anything new into our material realm that is edifying to our life. The Page of Cups in reverse, not being able to manifest emotion that is edifying. And the Magician reversed, not being able to find the drive and the tools to use the magic within, to externalize into an environmental experience that is edifying and spiritually buoyant. The problem behind this upright is the Three of Pentacles. Something in our work process is off. Something in our environment, in the way that we are interacting with people. It can be the people themselves. It can be the type of experience that we're having professionally, communal wise, that is off. Um, I can't give specific, I can't tell you what that is. I mean, it can be very intricate. It can be emotionally driven because, I mean, we have the cup and the pentacle there. And of course, the magician holds all of the um, tools. But It was clarified by the King of Swords, of course, in this very feminine deck that I pulled from. The King of Swords is a woman. Um, uh, so, what is that? King of Swords is a lack of mastery. I mean, in this case, I mean, it's not traditionally a lack, it's the fulfillment of that mastery. But because we're clarifying all of these negated energies, these repressed um, energies, disempowered energies in our environment, we're looking at the King of Swords from the perspective of how we're hindered in our King of Swords, because we are the King of Swords. We embody that mastery on our journey. That's our goal. Um, and of course, when you get to the King, as with everything, eventually, that will, through the major arcana, will lead us back to the Fool, and we will start all over again, and we'll go back to the Page. But what is holding us back from our King of Swords energy? Well, from what we see here, it's how we interact with the outside world. Now, only you can decide whether that means that your outside world, your environment needs to change, or you need to change. Um, but tying it in with that isolation card, I'd say that it's probably a little bit of both, because we're just mirrors. Our environment is just a mirror of us. If we don't feel fulfilled by it, it's because there's a part of us that doesn't have the um, audacity to take ownership. And we go back to our Obadire card, or however you pronounce it, of surrendering and trusting. Do you think the sky will fall? Do you think that the floor is going to open up beneath you if you make a decision to change something that you don't like, to break free of the chains? Again, I'm just presenting the general circumstances. Obviously, as I said, retrograde season to the degree that we're in right now, with all these planets either retrograde or on the verge of turning retrograde and staying that way until, Pluto, I think, goes direct at the beginning of October. That will be a pretty major and pleasant shift. But I think the rest we're looking at, Mars goes retrograde in October, and I think pretty much everything will be in retrograde until end of November, beginning of December, something around there. But so this is a time. Doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen, but this is definitely a time where we want to anchor ourselves in our process and our inner process, and look at what we have, focus on what we have and what we want to keep of what we have, and what we can improve in what we have. And of course, if the answer is you can't, or only to such a degree that it isn't really worthwhile, get rid of it. That's the bottom line. But maybe what I'm trying to say is, you may already know that you're going to get rid of certain things or make a big change in your life, but you know too that retrograde season, as we are in, is not really the right time for that. And so right now we're just processing, we're just trying to figure that out. I can certainly relate to that. I bargain with myself on a constant basis, trying to figure out how long I can endure certain things in my life, even down to calculating how much money I can make from something before I can comfortably leave it behind. And that's a terrible, terrible way of looking at life, because, well, there's never enough. You'll never have enough, right? But go back to that message from Obadire. Listen and trust spirit, right? That's what I got to work on. That's what you have to work on too. Let's look at our inner life again. Things are pretty funky here, but they do get to change, thank goodness. So we start with the Nine of Pentacles in reverse. Normally I don't read reversals, but these particular cards, I've also taken, I should preface before I go forward with that, that I have taken to looking at the cards in a very different way in recent times, where I've started to look at reversals more as challenges rather than the way that I used to look at them. And that's why I always refused to read reversals, was because I was like, oh, it's just negative, it's just awful, who wants to deal with negativity? But it's not. It's a challenge. It's bringing our attention to where we are, where the challenge lies, and how we can harness that and make our lives better, right? So, um, if we were just sitting around twiddling our thumbs or lying in a lounge chair all day long, that might sound nice. I've tried it. It's not. It's really boring, and you feel really disconnected, and it's depressing, and eventually you just like kind of don't want to deal with shit, because like you're just like, life sucks, and may as well end it now, because who cares if this is my life? That's what doing nothing really adds up to. Um, you have of course, then we have it. So that Nine of Pentacles in reverse. So it's feeling unfulfilled by whatever is happening outside, and then we feel that inside, or vice versa. You decide which comes first. It's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but the reality is that we create pretty much everything in our lives, even if it's subconsciously. So I guess we have to take accountability for that, right? The King of Swords reversed. So there we have the clarifier, the King of Swords upright, to clarify that external uh, what kind of a word am I trying to use right now? Impasse. Here we have the King of Swords on the inside, the indication that it does come from us, because the King of Swords reversed within ourselves is that we don't trust our thoughts. We don't believe our thoughts. We are not empowered in our thoughts. Our experiences have not led us to a point right now where we feel self-confident about what our thoughts and ideas add up to. We're in a period of doubt, self-doubt, and probably avoidance in that self-doubt too. What's going on down there, Enzo? Oh my God. Why don't you say hello? I know you don't want to. Say hello. He doesn't look very happy, does he? Baby, I love you. However, what we do see coming up in this equinox energy is the Wheel of Fortune. So a shift away from that. Maybe this reading for you will be a bit of the wake-up call for you. I mean, obviously not an epiphany in the moment like that, but just that this triggers the thought process. It will certainly do that for me, because I've been desperately looking for the catalyst to push me forward into a new way of thinking, because in a black and white way, I know what is right and what is wrong in my life, in terms of what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy, and what makes me happy and what is not making me happy, and where I feel lack. And perhaps spending a lot of time focused on where I feel lack, because again, when you don't feel love, you feel lack, right? And it's hard to love yourself when you're not really doing things that you want to do. Fortunately, I got a call from a very dear old friend of mine who I work collaboratively with creatively, and that sort of came out of nowhere, where we're relaunching a creative outlet for a new project. So Maybe that's the Wheel of Fortune. Maybe that's, that's where the love is at, you know, not pining over or crying over like why everybody's rude and like I don't have good friends and um, I mean, in my environment, and that I feel, you know, not important to other people. That's, it's, what's in my cup. We'll get to that. Um, because that's precisely where it leads to. That Wheel of Fortune leads us to reversing the Four of Cups. Here's a reversal that is enjoyable to see to me. It's getting to that place where what is the Four of Cups in the traditional tarot? It's, the cup is offered, but there's a deep apathy within the recipient, so much so that the recipient is so focused on what has caused that apathy, that disconnect, that they struggle to be inspired by the divine gift. So that being reversed is stepping out of that self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Of um, being uninspired, that nothing is good enough, kind of thing, And the clarifiers on that, solution clarifiers that we have here, are cards. Ironically, they are kind of not opposite, but they sort of speak in an sort of two realms, the inner realm and the outer realm. We got the Chariot, um, so a card of divine movement in the sense of the divine masculine and feminine converging in order to move our vessel forward into our next endeavors that are filled with that love. So as that wheel turns, the inspiration comes back. We step away from our disengagement within, and therefore we begin to take the reins of our life in trust of spirit to move ourselves in a direction that is worth it. And a lot of that comes down to the Hermit being the other major arcana here that we got as a clarifier. What is that telling us? That's telling us that it's the reminder that we have to nurture our light. We carry that light within, so we have to nurture it ourselves, but also that in re-engaging with our own love and inspiration, divine love and inspiration, we then become that hermit light to the carrying the lantern to others. We have to remind ourselves of that, that in that disengagement, in that feeling of aloneness, solitude, separation, isolation, that that is self-imposed. That's a perception that is self-imposed. And of course it's painful. And of course it's okay to feel that way because it sucks sometimes. It certainly sucks for people like us. We're trying to speak a language that nobody wants to hear. It's not glamorous. It's not fancy. It's not exciting. How can it be when you look at the grotesque violence and pornography of our culture? I mean, we literally are like in end of empire days of just everything's so debauched and ugly and meaningless and stupid, right? I mean, and we're trying to speak about inner light and spiritual guidance and, you know. So don't be hard on yourself. But that hermit card is always, well, both of those cards are basically reminders of what's bigger than us. And that's what keeps that wheel of fortune turning to our advantage, right? Okay, the fusional aspect of these. Something popped up on my screen and I don't like it. Interesting how this, again, we got a lot of big cards here. Um, we've got two major arcana and two aces. Two of them upright and two of them reversed. And you'll understand why when we look at the clarifier. So this fusion, where we take this, again, into that equinox energy, into that new season of fall or spring in the southern hemisphere, um, that is a time of embracing and letting go. We just experienced that with that full moon in Pisces, which, I mean, as much as everybody goes on about how gloriously wonderful and magic it was, um, I mean, full moon in Pisces, I mean, I have my moon in Pisces. It's like, ugh, like emotionally drowning in um, those, it's like having a crying fit. That feeling? I didn't have a crying fit. I might have had a little moment with something that triggered something of an emotional response that could count as a crying fit, I suppose. But for me, it's always like it feels like I'm mourning. It feels like I'm mourning something that's just not accessible anymore. And I want it to be accessible. And I don't know if it's possible for it to be accessible because I don't know if it's a loss of innocence that prevents it from being accessible or if it's a lack of letting a light into me. And that is confusing and painful. And then my little boo-hooing inner child comes out, and I have an ugly cry where I'm like, I feel, and it's just like it all crunches up, and fortunately nobody gets to see that. I remember once when I had my nervous breakdown, it was so surreal in certain ways that in this time, modern era of having uh, smartphones, I filmed myself having this fit of tears, of just, oh God, it was like so. I mean, we all know what that is, right? That feeling of, it's not despair. It's actually a release, but it's a release of something that we're holding on to that isn't true anymore. That can't be true because we've changed or the world has changed. And that is just, oh, it just feels, we just want our mother or the mother or the energy of the mother to be comforted, to feel safe. And when you're a child you can literally be held in safety by your mother. Obviously when you have to be independent in the world, you go out, and then in those moments when you feel that, there's that only adds to the sadness, right? Because I mean, you just can't really do that anymore. You have to learn to rely on yourself. I mean, you can literally, physically, if your mother is still around, but I'm just meaning that you have a different perception. I don't know why. Why do I even need to tell you? Because that to me is the full moon in Pisces in a nutshell. So I'm always glad when that's over. Cancer season, Pisces season, ugh, all of it is like, for me, I'm hypersensitive as a person. My empathic nature and my sensitivities go like completely on steroids in those times. So, where was I? Oh yeah. the Judgment card reversed, along with the Ace of Swords reversed. So what is this? So the Judgment card, I see a theme here, because let's not forget that the Magician would be holding that sword, that Ace of Swords. So again, it's that lack of inspiration and lack of surrender to your inner magician, really, you know? In other words, your inner magician is your reflection of God, spirit, source, light, whatever you want to call it. Um, Going back to that Obadiah card, and understanding that, you know, you cannot have rebirth. You cannot come back to your glorious, divine, enlightened, purposeful soul self when you are disconnected from spirit, when you're not entrusting yourself to spirit, when you're not accepting that the things that you need to experience or let go of or change or embrace, whatever it may be, based on what we've just discussed, that if you're not surrendering to that, then you are going to be in this Judgment in reverse energy and in this Ace of Swords in reverse energy, because there's no truth that can really come to you. There's only the old truth, the old ideas, the old way, the old conditioning that will just hold you back and prevent you from flourishing, growing, flowing with the energy. Again, with that Wheel of Fortune, because this is anchored in that energy, it comes right below it, we have the Ace of Cups upright. So again, what did we talk about before? What's in your cup? This is what we're going to be coming into with this eclipse energy. I mean, this eclipse. There will be eclipses coming in October, but that's not. I meant to say equinox. Sorry. What is in your cup? What do you want in your cup? What do you want to be in your cup that will overflow so that other people can experience it? That's divine energy. That's being in flow with the universe. That's being enlightened, is being able to choose to receive and to channel it into the best possible light source in your cup, and then, which generally is what creation, art, nurturing of any sort, self-nurturing, nurturing others, whatever it is, that's always what that Ace of Cups represents. So we shift into that. You know, there's a renewal there. There's an actual renewal, a new chance. And because we take that chance with that Ace of Cups, guess what? Our final card is the World, the ending of a huge karmic cycle. You know, we have these readings like this every now and then. Usually they seem to come, I don't know, I wouldn't like to say how often they come. I wanted to say every 3 or 4 months, but it could be 6 months. It could, I don't know. There was a period of time earlier this year where it felt as though we were having them all the time. But this is, you know, we've been in a karmic cycle probably, I'd say, since about June, May, June, this current one. And I think that it will resolve and end by probably, I'd say, mid to late October, and slowly drift away into, you know, the past, and we'll be in completely new energies by the time we get into November, December. But this is the ending of something that is like, it's poisoned the well of our spiritual wellness and empowerment. And it was clarified, of course, by the Five of Pentacles, which I haven't really taken the time to look at the depiction in this particular card. Maybe you want to pause and take a look at that, because maybe you can see something in it that I haven't taken the time to see yet, but I'm still going with the traditional Rider-Waite image. Of course, what is poverty consciousness? Five of Pentacles. It's really when the help and the assistance is there, and we're so focused on sort of, the Four of Cups, or, um, that we can't receive. So it's the end of not being able to receive. That is the conclusion of this reading. Although not quite, because we get two Osho clarifiers, which I will read. So stick around, because it's going to be another couple of minutes. What do we get? Beautiful cards. Flowering and receptivity. Makes sense that when you drop that poverty consciousness, that's what we move into. Where on earth is the book? Oh, here it is. Okay, no, I'll start with flowering. It's the Queen of Pentacles, Queen of Rainbows, 74. I know we've had the card before, but every time we learn something new, I will try to hold it up while I read. Can I? I don't know. Probably. The Queen of Rainbows is like a fantastic plant that has reached the apex of its flowering and its colors. She is very sexual, very alive, and full of possibilities. She snaps her fingers to the music of love, and her zodiac necklace is placed in a way that Venus lies over her heart. The sleeves of her garment contain an abundance of seeds, as the wind blows the seeds, and as the wind blows the seeds will be scattered to take root where they may. She is not concerned whether they land on the soil or on the rocks. She is just spreading them everywhere in sheer celebration of life and love. Flowers fall on her from above, in harmony with her own flowering, and the waters of emotion swirl playfully beneath the flower on which she sits. You might feel like a garden of flowers, showered with blessings from everywhere. Welcome the bees, invite the birds to drink your nectar, spread your joy around for all to share. Every time I read that, I always think that we're being told to become big old whores, but I guess that's probably not what they mean. But I did want to point out that with this Venus-Mars square coming this weekend, let's also be mindful of that energy, because I feel like Venus needs to win out, and I don't mean to pit the two, divine masculine and feminine, against each other, but right now I kind of do, because I really do feel like Venus needs to win. So let's make Venus win, right? In ourselves, because Mars needs to be harnessed a little bit, and especially with that cuckoo Gemini energy. Um, yeah, you know what I'm saying. I will read this Zen message, even though it sounds like gobbledygook sometimes when I read it. So let's try. Zen wants you living in abundance, living in totality, living intensely, not at the minimum as Christianity wants you, but at the maximum, overflowing. Your life should reach to others. Your blissfulness, your benediction, your ecstasy should not be contained within you like a seed. It should open up like a flower and spread its fragrance in all and sundry, not only to the friends, but to the strangers too. I told you, like, we're going to be big old whores. Keep your legs closed. This is the real compassion. This is real love. Sharing your enlightenment, sharing your dance of the beyond. Sure, well, I look forward to getting to that place. I certainly don't feel that way right now. Well, receptivity probably will clarify that too, won't it? Makes sense. We talked about that. All of this came together, as it always does. I hope you saw the commonality and the thread and the resolution. Receptivity. Is that the Queen of Cups? Why can't I find it? It's so hard. Receptivity. Really, I'm having a hard time right now. Is it a major arcana card? What's happening? Oh, no, it is the Queen of Cups. See, I should have trusted my instinct. 58. So we got two queens as our outcome. That is empowerment of the heart, right? Okay, I'll hold her up for that. It's not her. There she is. Receptivity represents the feminine, receptive quality of water and of the emotions. Her arms are extended upwards to receive, and she is completely immersed in the water. She has no head, no busy and aggressive mind to hinder her pure receptivity. And as she is filled, this is continuously emptying herself. No, sorry, she is continuously emptying herself, overflowing and receiving more. The lotus pattern on matrix, or matrix, I can't read, honestly, it's all in italics. Why do they always put everything in italics? The lotus pattern or matrix that emerges from her represents the perfect harmony of the universe that becomes apparent when we are in tune with it. The Queen of Water brings a time of unboundedness and gratitude for whatever life brings, without any expectations or demands. Neither duty or thought or merit of oh, Neither duty or thought of merit or reward are important. Sensitivity, intuition, and compassion are the qualities that shine forth now, dissolving all obstacles that keep us separate from each other and from the whole. Sorry about that botched reading. It was terrible, but whatever. Um, Listening is one of the basic secrets of entering into the temple of God. Listening means passivity. Listening means forgetting yourself completely. Only then can you listen. When you listen attentively to somebody, you forget yourself. If you cannot forget yourself, you never listen. If you are too self-conscious about yourself, you simply pretend that you are listening. You don't listen. You may nod your head, you may sometimes say yes and no, but you are not listening. When you listen, you become just a passage, a passivity, a receptivity, a womb. You become feminine. And to arrive, one has to become feminine. You cannot reach God as aggressive invaders, conquerors. You can reach God only, or it will be better to say, God can reach you only when you are receptive, a feminine receptivity. When you become yin, a receptivity, the doors open and you wait. Listening is the art for becoming passive. Of course, you do get to pick who you listen to and what you listen to. That goes without saying, because some things would not work. Um, wow, that was really not very profound, my final statement there, but fortunately the cards spoke much more um, competently than myself. On that note, I'm going to go play with my pussy, and um, I just hope that you're okay and that you're enjoying some inner, or that this reading will trigger you into taking some time to enjoy your inner life. Take time to flow inwardly. Understand that the outside is very yang right now. It's very masculine, this Mars and Gemini bullshit. And if we are to become receptacles, if we are to embrace our divine feminine, if that's the way to move forward right now, let us do that consciously. Go back and listen to that message again from obadiri, and do that healing exercise, because that's really what it's all about. That was about receiving too. So the whole thing is about receiving. Oh, I'm ready to receive. Oh God, I'm a mess. I love you. I hope that in this time until we meet again, I will have found some creativity, some passion, some openness, and that I stop feeling like I want to kill everyone or myself. I love you again. Namaste. Amen. Go be you. Heal.